This is the Easy Flash 3 cartridge for the Commodore 64. It looks unremarkable. 3 buttons at the top, we'll plug on the side, but this little guy does a lot of work, especially if you have an original Commodore 64 breadbin, but there are some interesting things you can do with the Ultimate as well. Let's take a look together. Stick around.
Let's go into the MonroeWorld.
Hi everyone, Shane R. Monroe here. The Easy Flash 3 cartridge is basically a 3-in-1 utility cartridge, not so dissimilar from something like the Action Replay, Final Cartridge 3, Super Snapshot, but that's just a little small piece of what this guy will do. So we're going to look at the 3 main pillars of this guy, how it works, and why you would want one for the Commodore 64, and why even for the 64 Ultimate. Now this cartridge, we're going to plug into the Commodore 64, the original breadbin first, because the first pillar of what this thing does only works on a real Commodore 64. So when you've got the cartridge in and you power up, you see what you're seeing on the screen. There are 3 different areas. There is one for kernels, one for snapshots or utility cartridges, freezer cartridges, and there's one for games or other content. So these are literally the 3 pillars. This first pillar, the kernel replacement, is exactly why I bought this cartridge to begin with. Because let's be honest, if you have the C64 Ultimate, a lot of this utility goes away. You can specify which kernel to use on the Ultimate. You can specify what cartridge to use on the Ultimate. You can open and execute CRT games on the Ultimate. So this card's biggest utility is, of course, on the original breadbin. But I digress. Let's talk about kernels. The kernel inside the Commodore 64 is basically a ROM chip that contains the inner workings. Think of it almost like a BIOS or even an operating system level chip. When you want to include something like JiffyDOS or Dolphin DOS or some sort of DOS enhancer, you do have to put a chip inside your physical floppy drive. In this case, this is the 1541-2. This has a JiffyDOS ROM already inserted, but I can't use it with my Commodore 64 OG because I don't have JiffyDOS kernel ROMs in here. This is a JiffyDOS kernel ROM. It looks just like this. This little guy replaces the kernel inside of here, and this gives you the ability to toggle on and off JiffyDOS, as well as access the JiffyDOS process over to the drive. This makes your drive 6 times faster, adds DOS wedge, all that stuff. I have a video in the upper right that'll tell you all about JiffyDOS. I know what you're thinking, Shane, why do you have this here instead of in here? Well, there is a story. I bought this figuring I would put it in my OG so that I could use my 1541-2 with my OG. Well, yeah, therein lies the story. See, some Commodore 64s, this kernel chip is socketed, meaning you open it up, take out a chip puller, pop it off the board, pop this guy in, run this cable somewhere, and you're good. This particular Commodore 64, you probably have already figured it out, the kernel is surface mounted. I would have to remove physically a chip from the motherboard. I do not have the skill set to do that, but I was told using the Easy Flash cartridge, you can actually replace the kernel on the fly with just the cartridge. You don't have to open it up. You don't have to even pull the chip out. You could use that in lieu of this. Well, there we go. So now you know why I bought this cartridge, was so that I could use JiffyDOS with my OG without removing a surface mount chip. So to use it on here is very simple. You hit 5. It boots the system into JiffyDOS. There it is, JiffyDOS 6.01. Now, if I were to plug in this 1541-2, I would be able to do full JiffyDOS utility with that setup. So that was pillar number 1. Now, some other interesting stuff here. I'm going to go back and hit the button on the far left. This brings me back to the Easy Flash menu. Now, you see I've got other stuff, other Commodore 64 kernels, along with the SX64 kernel. That's right, every Commodore 64 has to have a kernel chip in it, But like the SX64, if you've never seen one, has a completely different looking kernel in it. If I were to hit 4, this would look a whole lot different. That is what the SX64 looks like when you power it on. I am now using the SX64 kernel instead of the one that's built in. Now I know what you're thinking, Shane. What are you doing with these other kernels? Like, what's number 1? Right? It doesn't look any different, but it is. There are quirks inside of version 1 of the kernel that you might want to exploit for a certain game, or you need it for some other utility. In my case, I just threw them on there because, well, I had all these kernel slots, and you know, I didn't have anything else to put in there. But you can tell it looks exactly the same. You'd have to go in and use a poke or a peek to find out what the differences are. So that's really why I bought this cartridge, purely for JiffyDOS on my OG 64. Obviously, on the Ultimate, there's no problem. You just pick which one you want, pick which kernel you want, pick which cartridge you want. So there you go. That's why I bought this thing to begin with. But that's just one pillar of the equation as to what else this can do for you. So far, pillar 1 is completely absorbed by the C64 Ultimate. Fair. Let's talk about the second pillar. The second pillar is utility cartridges. Action replay cartridges, Super Snapshot, Final Cartridge, all of these other sorts of utility cartridges that you may want to run. Now, they're expensive to get a hold of. You can get repros, but it takes up the cartridge slot, right? So if I want JiffyDOS to be available as a kernel, right, I may have to have a cartridge if I want to do snapshots. That's just it. You get to pick sort of which one you want to use. So I am going to do this. I'm going to say JiffyDOS, just for giggles, right? So now I've got JiffyDOS installed. I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to set up replay slot 1, which I believe is the NTSC. Yeah, this is the PAL version of version 6 of the Action Replay. Again, if you don't know anything about Action Replay, there will be a link to my video in the upper right. Now, I know a lot of you said, Shane, you need to look at Super Snapshot. It does everything. You gush too much over Action Replay. You need to look at Super Snapshot. That's coming in the future. But there you go. Now, notice I get fast load from Action Replay, but JiffyDOS is gone, right? So you got to pick. You can't use them both concurrently. At least I don't know. If you know how to, leave a comment in the description below. So I also have Y here, this is version 5, which is NTSC, by the way. 6 is PAL. Why would you want one or the other? Some games have some timing issues. If you want a snapshot, you'll need to use the proper version. That's why I have them both here. But again, it's very similar, fast load 5. Now, Super Snapshot, my friends. You might be looking at this video specifically to find out why Super Snapshot doesn't work on EasyFlash on your C64 Ultimate. When we get there, I'm going to show you why it fails and how to fix it. For now, though, if I want to set up for a snapshot and clear all memory, right, now I'm ready. I hit F7 to exit, and I go back. Now, I get the turbo feature, right, so I get the faster load and saves. But let's say I want to freeze, which is the middle button back here. So let's freeze it. It worked. Super Snapshot, snapshot screen copy, game master monitor, snap term, all the functionality is there because I froze in progress the Commodore 64, and now I'm able to do stuff like take my snapshots or whatever. All right, great. That doesn't work on the Ultimate without doing some changes. That's why I wanted to show it that it works here before we move over to just using the Ultimate. All right, so last but not least, so that's the second pillar, which is the ability to use whatever sort of utility cartridge you want. You've got your kernel replacement. Now, third, of course, is on-the-fly programmable CRT emulation, which also includes what you might call a mega-cart or multi-cart. Now, you see here, I've got Commando and Prince of Persia, but I also have things like Epic Games or Ultimate Game Collection. Look at this. If I go to Ultimate Game Collection, I get my EasyFlash boot menu. Oh my God, really? All of these games are available? No, I don't even have a floppy drive attached. I can get Choplifter and Frogger and Gianna Sisters and Gyrus, and this works instantly. There's no load time going on. I hit Gyrus and it's just like, boop, there it is. It's good to go. If you ever loaded Gyrus on a Commodore 64 OG maybe without any fast load, you'll know that that's just freaking incredible. Now, you can also use the outside right button to bring yourself back to the cartridge. That's really cool. So now you play Gyros, you can start sampling. I want to sample Ms. Pac-Man. Oh yeah, Ms. Pac-Man. Okay, I'm done with Ms. Pac-Man. I want to play something else. Perfect. How about some Gianna Sisters? Yes, let's play Gianna Sisters. Perfect. High score. Load. There you go. I mean, just boom, boom, boom. This is the OG. This is no JiffyDOS. There's nothing funky going on here. It's just the Easy Flash 3 cartridge. How great is that? Right? And of course, you can always go use the outside button on the left to jump back in here and check out the Epix game collection. This is great, right? Plays a little bit of world games. No docs. And yeah, well, sometimes there is some sort of a load. But there you go. That's so great. So literally the 3 pillars, right? The 3 pillars, multi-cart, mega cart type emulation. Plus there's games like Prince of Persia or other games. I think this Arcade Commando here, by the way, this isn't just the regular Commando. Not that real, I mean, regular Commando is great, but this is this is the arcade version. So this is something different than the Commando that you've always played. I don't have anything plugged in. Oh, maybe I can start the game. But it's been redone, but I think this is only available on cartridge. I don't remember for sure. Don't hold me to that. But things like Prince of Persia, the game requires that you use an Easy Flash. And there's a lot of these sort of special homebrew ports that only use an Easy Flash, or maybe, you know, a Kung Fu cartridge or something like that. But you can't just get it on a disc, for example. So that's one of the extra pieces of functionality. Right. So now that we've seen this all on the OG, let's take a look. I'm going to go over to the Ultimate now so that we can see how it works, how you flash something new to it, and what all of that looks like. It's just easier to do on the Ultimate, and I'll explain why in just a minute. Let's go. All right, we're back here on the Ultimate now, and as I mentioned, there are some things that do not work here. For example, if you wanted to make it look like the SX64 by changing the kernel, using this doesn't work. Now, JiffyDOS just happens to be part of my original configuration, but you'll notice this does not look like the SX64 did. That doesn't work here, but it doesn't need to, right? Because built in here is you can set whatever kernel ROM you want right here. I can put the JiffyDOS ROM in if I so desired. I could put in an SX64 ROM if I so desired. My point is that this kernel replacement is already built in. So it is definitely what you would call sort of a non-starter with regards to the Easy Flash. Now, you probably just noticed, why didn't the Easy Flash come back? This does happen when you monkey around. All you have to do to get it back is to just do a quick power cycle and it will come back. Sometimes it just dumps out. I'm sure there's a reason, and you guys will tell me in the comments down below. Now, again, while you can use this to instantiate a cartridge image such as this, now you'll also notice though that I can use JiffyDOS and this at the same time. That is definitely a bonus that we have here. But again, you don't need to, because you can actually put in any cartridge you want. Action Replay, Fast Load, Turbo Load and Save, Super Snapshot, whatever. You can already do that, right? So once again, we have another pillar, quite frankly, that this isn't really necessary for the C64 Ultimate. Now, yes, you can launch cartridge games from the Commodore 64 Ultimates. You could actually probably run any of these just fine. We could experiment with that if you want in another video. The point though is running Commando from here, that seems cool, but you didn't need the Easy Flash 3 to do that. So there you have it. All right, I do want to show you one more thing though. So I'm going to go ahead and do a power reset, power cycle here, bring us back in here. So the Super Snapshot does not work correctly in the Ultimate with the Easy Flash cartridge. Now, you're probably saying, who cares? But somebody's going to ask about it. I guarantee it. If you run Super Snapshot from here, we'll set up our memory, say that it's empty. It's working. Shane, you lied to us. It's working. It's only working because I made a configuration change. Let's take a look. F2 from this menu, go down to cartridge and ROM settings. This bus operation mode is the key. It defaults to quiet. When it's in quiet mode, no go with the Super Snapshot. You're sitting there saying, Shane, I don't believe you. You're a dirty, filthy liar, blah, 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 whatever, right? I just hit the button. Blinking cursor, nothing. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. That's why you go and make that change. And then the whole card freaks out and you have to restart it. But then it will work the subsequent times. Of course, now I have to do a power reset. No big deal. And now Super Snapshot will work as it's supposed to. We don't have to clear memory. We'll just do it. There you go. All works. Now, I did say that there was something about the C64 Ultimate that was easier to do with the EasyFlash 3 than using the OG. That is actually putting content on there. So let's take a look at that. So once we're on this menu, if we go to P for EasyProg, this is the EasyFlash Programmer. It looks a lot more daunting than it is, and there are some expert features that will probably freak you out. So if I hit M for menu, you can see write a CRT to the flash, write a kernel, write an action replay, write an SS5 or Super Snapshot 5, erase all, erase slot, blah, blah, blah. You got all those things going on, right? And of course, you can turn on and off the fast loader that's built in automatically. And there's a whole bunch of expert stuff, which you may need it, you may not. I have not needed it as of yet. So let's talk about writing a CRT to flash. Now, these are big. You can only imagine how big that ultimate game collection is, right? That's not like a floppy disk type scenario. That's got to be bigger, right? Of course it is. So how do you, if you don't have some sort of mass storage like the SD card or a flash drive here, how on an OG 64 do you get something huge to flash onto the cartridge? That is, of course, the $50,000 question. And the answer is you need an SD to IEC for your OG, or you need a second unit such as this. It's perfect. So let's go ahead and write something to the slot. Now, this takes a really long time, but we also need some content. I'm going to show you a nice little trick here. So this is a 32 gigabyte USB flash drive that happens to have a boatload of EasyFlash 3 flashable CRTs. I'm going to plug this guy right on in. Maybe. There we go. I'm going to plug that in. Now, when you go to set one of your slots to go to write, it defaults to drive 8. Now, drive 8 is actually like a virtual floppy, blah, blah, blah. So what you can do is there's a really neat trick inside of here that you can use called Software IEC. So Software IEC allows you to assign a storage location to a drive. It sounds impossible, right? Not so. Go to your F2 menu, go down to Soft IEC drive settings. We are going to enable it. It's already enabled on drive 11, moving it out of drive A and B or 8 and 9. Move those out of the way. I don't have anything plugged into the bus, so 11 would be a good choice. It's already set for enabled in 11. So now what I need to do is navigate to that drive that has all the good stuff on it, which you can see right there, Bruce Lee Trilogy, Cinemaware Collection, blah, blah, blah. F1, Software IEC, and set directory here. Boom. Now that folder is drive 11. Pretty neat, right? Now we're probably going to have to reset this because it might freak out. I'm just going to do it just in case. We go to P, we're going to go to menu, we're going to write CRT again, we're going to write to slot 6. Now again, it defaults to drive 8, nothing in drive 8. If you hit 1 and then 1, so drive 11, 1, 1, it will actually pick it up, and now there's 11. Look at that. Look at all that good stuff. These things are huge. Look how big these things are. I mean, you're talking about, look at this. I don't know what that is. That's not one of the ones. That's something else. But look at that. The game collection, 3749 block, unbelievable. These things are huge, right? So if you're going to write one of these, it's going to take a while. So this is Prince of Persia. You can see there's a lot of long running stuff in here. Let's go ahead and let's do, I don't know, Ultimate Wizard. They just call it Wizard. It's not the ultimate one. We're going to go ahead and write that. This will erase the contents, blah, 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 and go. So now, this screen flicker, by the way, I only see it sometimes. Uh-oh, we've got a problem here. Is it actually writing? Oh, there it goes. The screen flicker is, it's a known issue. I've seen it happen. I've seen it not flicker when it does it. It seems to have something to do with a configuration item, but it does not impact the final result, which is to write that CRT file into that ROM space, or RAM space in this case, of the cartridge. Now, the best part is it's permanent. So you're actually flashing it on there, and it will be available even if you turn the machine off, even if you take this, plug it into the OG Commodore 64 we were just looking at. This is a really easy way to get stuff on there. Again, if you have the OG, it's going to be harder for you to get these massive file sizes onto that cartridge without having some sort of a mass storage such as an SD to IEC. We're going to let this thing run because it's going to take a while. Go ahead, we're going to wait, and I'll be back when this is done. Well, that only took about 3 minutes. Now, when I flashed the Legacy of the Ancients and Secret of Black Silver, it took over 15 minutes. So we're going to consider ourselves lucky. We're going to hit enter, just accept the default of Wizard. Now let's jump ourselves back into that menu. There's Wizard, slot 6, F on the keyboard. Look at that. There you go. And Ultimate Wizard, well, this is just Wizard. I played Ultimate Wizard when it was bought from Progressive Peripherals by Electronic Arts, and they jazzed it up a little bit, but it's essentially the same game. All right. I think that's about all we need to talk about for the Easy Flash 3. If you're looking for more technical details, or you want me to pull the cartridge apart, see what's inside, whatever, let me know in the comments down below. Do you have an Easy Flash 3 cartridge? Do you have a Kung Fu cartridge? Which do you like more? Let me know in the comments. I'm excited to cover more of these sorts of things. Yes, I have a Super Snapshot video coming as well, so I'll be covering that in great detail. Listen, thanks so much for watching. Like the video, hype, subscribe, hit the bell, all that good YouTube stuff. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. I'm Shane R. Monroe. Take care.